Hey Rider fans, welcome to the Bronx Hot Seat, our show that gives you an up-close and personal look at some of our team, student athletes, and coaches. I'm your host, Karen Torsha, and today I've got a very special episode of Bronx Hot Seat for you, basically because none of our teams are here. It's summer, and they're all on hiatus. So what I want to do instead is talk about a very hot issue in college basketball, and that is the July recruiting period. So joining me here today on the hot seat are two individuals whose job it is to know about July recruiting and all the NCAA rules and regulations. Our head women's basketball coach, Lynn Milligan, and our head men's basketball coach, Kevin Baggett. So welcome to you both. Glad you both could be here with me today.
Be here.
Well, I'm going to call you Bags. I never call you Kevin. I can't do it. Obviously, Bags has been on the hot seat before, but I think you are a hot seat newbie. So
I'm very excited to be a newbie.
So what we're going to do, got some basketball-related questions for you both, and then I'm going to take you through my rapid-fire Q&A. Hot seat.
Wait.
First thing that comes to your mind. Bags already went through this. He already experienced it.
He survived.
I survived.
If you watched his, don't think the questions are going to be the same because I change them up. Some of them may be, but people like our student athletes like to think that if they watch previous episodes that I ask all the same questions. That's not how it
Expect
works.
nothing less.
That's not how it works. So let's start off. We're going to talk about July recruiting. Okay, I'm not going to pretend to know all the rules and regulations because basically, like I said, that's your job, and I don't think anybody wants to sit up here and listen to me just talking about July recruiting because that would be really boring. So Lynn, let me start with you. What are the rules and regs for women's basketball with July recruiting?
Well, July recruiting is probably our biggest time of the year as far as being able to see a volume number of kids and evaluate everybody that we possibly have in our database. We get 10 days to go out and do that. Then we have a 6-day dead period, and then we get another 10 days to go out and evaluate.
Mm-hmm. And that's just in July, so you'll
Just
take
the month
all
of
that
July.
in July. Okay,
Yes.
So now Bags, obviously your rules are really different,
Right.
and they're even different from what they were in previous years. So
Right.
so what are you guys allowed to do, and how is that different from the women, and how is it different from last year?
Unlike on the women's side, ours is now 3 5-day windows. It goes from Thursday at 5 o'clock until Sunday at 5 o'clock. So that's something that's new for us. We were similar to what the women had of late. And since changing that, this is going to be interesting because I think all the coaches are trying to find out whether or not the rules are better for us or not as good for us. But it was interesting. Had a chance to get out and see a bunch of kids here the last couple of days. So definitely a change, but good.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you both this question. With that in mind, and knowing that there's so many tournaments and so many kids playing, and you've only got a certain amount of time, how do you decide who goes where? Lynn, I'll start with you. On your staff, how do you decide who goes to what place?
Yeah, there's such an enormous amount of tournaments through these 10 days, and my staff does an excellent job basically on the phones, calling coaches when we talk to the kids, where are you going to be? The kids that are, more towards the top of our list or that we're very close to maybe getting a verbal commitment from that we like a lot are usually the kids that I go and see. And most times it's, I'm going from, in the last 10 days I was out probably a different city 7 days of the 10, just going day to day, and where my staff will kind of maybe sit at a spot for 2 or 3 days, I'll go in and out to see kids that I have to see. So it's definitely challenging, but with a 10-day window, you have time to go see kids. It's just a question of where,
Right.
Lexington, York, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Nashville, we were everywhere. So it's just knowing where the kids you need to see are, and you just have to go.
And Bags, how did that work for you guys with, obviously you're really jam-packed into those 4 or 5 days
Right.
this first time around.
And the other thing that I'm now experiencing is we have 2 new assistants as well. As far as we have our priority list, there's some guys that Mike Wachowski and I were already recruiting. We've gone out, we've had a chance to see those guys. Now with having 2 new guys on my staff, not having seen their guys yet that they've been recruiting at other places, that's the time that I'm spending now to get out to Florida to see those kids, get out to Philly the other day to see some other kids that our guys are recruiting. And we're out there looking at a number of kids, so it was good just to have a chance to see some of the new guys, some of their guys as well, who are very talented.
So now that you've both been through the first period of your July recruiting, I kind of want to hear about the travel that you endured and maybe what like a typical couple of days, like you had just
Right.
a bizarre
Right.
week last week.
Oh.
So, but Lynn, start with you were out 10 days. Where did you go in those 10 days?
I started in Long Island, then I went to York, Pennsylvania, then I was in Atlanta, Chicago, Lexington, and then back home to Philadelphia.
Okay.
The hardest day was like 2 days ago. I started out at 6 a.m. in Chicago, went from Chicago to Nashville to Philly, and it was pretty much, I looked at my clock when I got home, I was up for 21 hours. It was an intense day, but it was worth it. I mean, 2 great tournaments, and I had to get to both spots.
You ever get that feeling like you wake up and you're not sure where you are?
Well, you forget your room number in your hotel. You forget what color your car rental is. You park in the morning, and a lot of these places, we're lucky enough, some of the tournaments have 10 or 12 courts in the same site.
Right.
So you park your car at 8 in the morning and you go get it at 10 o'clock at night, and all the coaches are beeping trying to find their cars. You just don't remember where you park or what color the rental car is that day. But It's a challenge, but it's fun.
Bags, what about you? I mean, you had the 5 days, but you had camp going on here.
Right.
So what did you do?
For me, I left on Tuesday after having, been to camp for a couple of days. I went to Indianapolis, stayed out there for a couple of days. I didn't get in until midnight the other night, Thursday night, then had to be back up Friday to close camp, and it's typical though, so I haven't had to do a lot of traveling,
Right.
but I will starting this week
Right.
and the following week, so that's what I expect.
So tell me what one of your typical days was then last week. Like when you, what time you would get to the gym and when you would get out of
the first game started at 8 in the morning, and then the last game ended anywhere from, really the rule saying now, I take that back, the last day they have to be done at 5. But these games are going on until 11:30 at night, and you're eating pretzels and hot dogs, all the bad food that you can imagine on the road.
Not getting a workout in either, right?
Not getting a workout in, and sitting there and watching these kids play, and some of these kids are good, some of them aren't good, some of the coaches are like coaching for a national championship,
Right.
all of those things, but it's a long day. It's a long day, it's a long grind. The refs are not always that good. A lot of the players don't really know what they're doing half the time, and there's a lot of bad teams out there too. So I know they consider everybody having an AAU team, but there's some AAU teams that aren't good out there.
So you get a little bleary-eyed by the end.
You get a little blurry-eyed,
Yeah,
definitely.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
So Lynn, when you go out then, what are you looking for in players when you go to these events?
We're looking for a rider fit, and for us it's about how hard you play. It's about your character on the court. It's about your how you are with your teammates, your presence on the court, and obviously the basketball stuff is easy to see.
Mm-hmm.
Can they handle the ball? Can they shoot? If it's a post player, what's their footwork? Can they run? Can they catch? That's the easy stuff.
Right.
It's for us being a mid-major program, we've got to find some diamonds in the rough. I mean, anybody can walk to a court and find the best player on the
Right.
court, but if there's 100 coaches looking at the best player, that's really not going to help me. So we've got to find the rider player that maybe sticks out doing some other things. Maybe the intangibles, kind of come through a little bit more that will fit what we do in our program, both on and off the court.
So Bags, when you go out, do you know beforehand who you're going to see, and then how much beyond the rising juniors and seniors are you looking?
Well, I would say this. Most times you know who you're going to see. When you go and see and evaluate some of these teams, there's some other kids that you weren't recruiting that end up popping up on some of these teams, and you're like, you know what, let me look into this kid, and like Lynn talked about, it's the rider way.
Right.
Some of the players that we're looking for, the guys that fit our style of offense, defensively, character. So when we're out there, that's what we're looking for. But there are kids all over. I mean, and so my whole motto is if they can play, we'll find them and we'll recruit them, even if they're not on our list, and then we just go from there and see if it's a fit for us or not.
Now let me ask you this too, because last year you were recruiting for Tommy Dempsey,
Right.
who has a different style of play from you.
Right.
Are you looking at different type of kids now, or are they similar kids?
They're similar in a lot of aspects. I'm also looking for a tougher kid. I know we've had the pretty kids, I would call them, guys that can make shots and shoot a high percentage of three-pointers and things, but I think now with the league turning over a lot of transfers and more mature, tougher kids, that's the direction that I want to take our team as well. Similar players, but a little more toughness to them as well.
Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about recruiting at other times of the year other than July. I know it varies quite a bit. Lynn, what are you allowed to do at other times during the year?
Well, we have 2 weekends in a year where we can go to what they call non-scholastic events, which are basically the AAU tournaments like we're seeing in July. We have a weekend in October and we have a weekend in April. Beyond those 2 weekends, it's pretty much the high school season. We'll get 100 person days to go out and evaluate throughout that time. So we use, we probably use all 100 or very, very close to it every year, but it's spaced out pretty much between like about a 6-month span where we get a chance to go look at the kids, mostly playing in their high school.
And how many kids can you bring on campus to visit?
Unofficial visits, which kids are coming on their own, paying their own way, as many as we want.
At any point?
At any point, unless it's a dead period, which we are in right now for our 6 days. Yeah, the kids can come anytime they want. We're big proponents of the unofficial visit. We want as many kids on campus as possible. Official visits, we're paying, and the student athlete only gets 5. For us, they can't start taking them until the first day of their classes in their senior year, and we only get 12 to offer out.
Okay. And Bags, how do your rules differ from the women?
Well, the one thing Lynn said, we actually get 2 weekends in April. We also have a little more than 100 days to be able to get out and evaluate. We also can bring in kids officially starting their junior year now, where they've kind of gone back and forth with this. It used to be the junior year, then it went to the senior year, now it's back to the junior year, and you just have so many kids committing early now, especially to the high levels, not in particular for our level, but the sooner you can identify a kid and you can get them up, what we'd like to do is get them up unofficially on campus their junior year and then recruit them. They've already had established a relationship with us, and then throughout the process they'll know, and anytime they see us they recognize who we are and identify with what school we're at as well. So our rules vary a little bit, but not too much.
Not too much. Well, I know, and we'll stay with you on this one, one of the hottest rule changes now is the unlimited texting in men's basketball.
Which is awesome.
After a recruit sophomore year. What kind of an impact do you think this is going to have on your sport? And then I guess the second part of that question is, how do you draw the line at over texting a recruit?
Well, it's good from a standpoint that now we're able to text these kids because they're texting all the time anyway. And I never understood why they put that rule in there anyway, because you can instant message a kid. There's so many other things you could do, but because kids are constantly texting now, so long as they're not at an event, then you can text them. And it's just a line of communication where you can just drop them a quick text. Hey, good morning, such and such, just saw you, congratulations on the thing, as opposed, or a win, or as opposed to having to write, or you only get 2 calls per week, and now that's unlimited now. So it's changed for us, which is for the better. Because communication, you don't have as much time to get out to evaluate a kid. But if you can establish a relationship where you're talking to him on the phone, getting to know him getting to know you, and the family, it makes for an easier transition when you're getting those kids on campus.
So what about the thought of over texting kids? How do you establish what could be over texting where the kid's just going to get annoyed with you?
I'm still trying to figure that out. It's still early. I don't want to over text a kid because we also have lives as well. There's other kids that we're trying to text and recruit as well, and still focusing. The biggest thing is our own guys that we have in our program. So. We text a couple of times a week to the kids, but we try not to overdo it though as well, to where we're more of a burden than anything else. Yeah.
Right. So Lynn, I know both of you can kind of message recruits on social media, Facebook and things like that. And since your rules for contacting recruits differ from the men, you aren't given the unlimited texting.
No.
How valuable is the tool like the social media aspect to your program, and how often do you utilize that?
Well, our Rider Women's Basketball Facebook page we utilize every day. We try to get kids to be our friend on Facebook, and we can message them. We can't write on their walls and things like that, but we can message them.
You can direct message.
We can direct message
Is
them.
it the same for Twitter? Can you do that with Twitter as well? Or?
No, I don't believe we can do it for Twitter. But it's challenging because for us it's, we don't have a lot of avenues. We don't have unlimited texting. We don't have the amount of phone calls. We get 1 phone call a week, and that doesn't even start until August.
Right.
I mean, since April, I've only had 4 phone calls for recruits. 1 a month, and then 2 in June.
Now, can they call you?
They can call us anytime they want.
For both programs, right?
And that's another way that we have to go about things. Email is actually very helpful because most kids have email right on their phones.
Right.
So email is really big for us. Hey, hope everything's going well. Give me a call today. That kind of thing. So you kind of have to go that route for us. I think eventually we'll catch up to the men and have the same type of rules, but right now we're still kind of in the same pattern.
Good. Kevin, this question's for you. I know another additional difference between the 2 programs is the summer access to your players. What are you allowed to do, and how does that benefit your program in the long run?
It benefits us a great deal. We have 2 hours per week. You can break it up. We break it up in about 35 minutes per session, 3 times a week. The biggest thing is not as much the returning guys. You can still develop them, but now you get a chance to work with your freshmen, which is, more often than not, you're trying to get them caught up during the season or during the preseason. And now having them on campus in the summer and working with those guys, it gives you a chance to evaluate and know what type of player you have, although we know anyway, but to know their strengths and weaknesses before we go into the season. That also helps us in the recruiting now, as well as we're going out here saying, you know what, such and such may not be as much of this or that we thought, so that we might want to recruit this type of kid now. So that's helped us, and it just allows us to be able to work with our guys again. And those guys being here in the summer anyway, taking classes, it just makes sense though. So these guys are getting better, and again, it's not as much team things as it is just fundamentals and just trying to develop them as a player.
And Lynn, you guys can't work with your players, but you still have them here over the summer. Do you develop programs for them to do?
We do. I mean, we try to give them as much of a pattern or a routine that they can follow as far as lifting. They can lift with our strength and conditioning coach, do conditioning and lifting with him. As far as basketball, and we talk with our players about this all the time, it's summer is about self-discipline. It's about getting in the gym and doing your work. It's about doing the extra conditioning. It's about making sure you're where you need to be and getting it done, because your job in the summer is to become a better basketball player. It would be great that we would be able to facilitate that a little more, and again, in the future I think we will catch up to that, but the summer's about self-discipline.
Good.
The one thing Lynn has, not to cut you off,
No,
but the one thing Lynn has is they start their practice season before we do. So
yes, exactly.
There's a little bit of a balance, but it would make sense that we all get on the same page.
Yeah, you're about a week before, right?
Our rule is we are allowed to begin official practice 40 days before our first game with 10 days off.
Okay.
So the timing of when the men start, when we start, the number of practice days is the same, but we get to space ours out a little bit. So that has been very helpful.
Okay.
But this year it starts on September 30th, so it's very early.
Oh, that is early.
Yeah.
Very
Okay,
early.
good. Well, that does it for my basketball specific questions.
I'm nervous now.
So,
The hot seat segment?
yeah, this is
Oh,
the hot
nice.
seat segment. Now our fans are going to get to know you just a tad bit better. I'm going to put you on the hot seat for our rapid fire session. Bags doesn't have to do this because he already did it on
get
a
to
previous
enjoy
show.
it now.
Yeah, he can sit here and enjoy, and feel free to add any hot seat questions that you want. I don't normally do this, but All right, so your first one, and this is kind of first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Which basketball coach, college or pro, do you look to as a role model, and why?
I'm a big Tom Izzo fan from Michigan State. I like the way he runs his program. He wins with rebounding and defense, and he's a guru of out-of-bounds plays and sideline out-of-bounds, so I watch him quite a bit.
Okay. When you're not playing, when you're not coaching or games or practice or anything, what's your favorite thing to do other than spend time with your family?
Boy, there's so much time. There's so much time to do things. When I'm not spending time with my family.
Or reading self-help books, because I know you do that.
Yes, I do quite a bit of that. I am trying to read more, and I do enjoy, I shouldn't say enjoy, I do work out when I'm by myself. I try to give myself an hour a day just to be by myself.
You don't enjoy the workouts?
I don't love them, I'm not going to lie.
You got to do insanity, I'm telling you.
I don't love them, but I do try to I am trying to be more diligent with giving myself an hour a day to kind of just have some me time.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from someone, and who was it that gave it to you?
My father used to tell me to rub dirt on it. And I kind of take that in a lot of different ways, because, when you fall down or, you're hurt, whether it's physically or mentally, you got to get up, rub it off and keep on moving forward. So that's what I try to do.
I like that. If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
I would like to think that I'd be in some form of, definitely would still be involved with sports, whether sports marketing, sports broadcasting, somewhere along those lines I was interested in.
What's your favorite quote?
Choice, not chance, determines destiny.
Oh, I like it.
That's an easy one, right?
Yeah. If you had to have 100 animals at one time,
Okay.
what animal would it be?
Well, since I have 2 cats at home, another
Please don't
98
say
would
the-
be okay.
So you want to be the cat lady?
I could be the crazy cat lady.
You're
I'm
the
not far off.
Crazy cat lady.
Far
Let
off.
it be known that Coach Milligan wants to be the crazy
Yes,
cat lady.
I
Most
could be the
people.
crazy- You knew I was going to say that. That's why you
I
asked
know.
that.
Well, when most people would ask that question, they say fish. I had one student athlete said ants, and I was like, oh, that's actually a really good thing. You should put them in an ant farm.
I have 2
farm.
wonderful
Wow.
cats. They could have some brothers and sisters.
Wow. I hope you have a
I need
very
a bigger
large
house.
All right. If you could be any person, alive or dead, for one day, who would it be and why?
I think I would be, and this is off the cuff, obviously, I think I would say Amelia Earhart, because of her courage and fearlessness to go do something that nobody thought she could do.
Well, how do we know she actually did it? Because no
Because
one
we
actually
know.
found her.
We know.
Right?
She had the courage
She's
to go
sort
do
of.
it.
She might still be doing it.
She's
You
here.
never know.
She's here.
She could still.
She had
be
the courage
out
to
there.
go out and do it. And that's a good thing.
Excellent. Well, there you go. There is your time on the hot seat.
That was
hot
easy.
seat.
That was
Easy.
easy.
Excellent.
Well, you know, there was
Yeah.
just so much with you, with your 8 million suits and your
Yeah.
45
Wow,
pairs of
wow.
shoes.
You have a rep.
Well, what about you, Lynn? Do you have a lot of shoes? What do you have a lot of?
You know what? I'm not a shoe person. I'm not. I don't have the closet full of shoes.
What do you collect? It's got to be something.
I collect books. I collect books that I like to read.
Okay. Come on, Bags. You got to have something else. I can't remember what I asked you. What's your favorite song?
Yeah.
That's what I asked.
My favorite song.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Or artists?
We learned a lot about
I know.
Bags. We learned that he's like an outdoorsman.
Oh, yeah.
He fishes
Yeah.
all the time. He's an Earth, Wind, and Fire guy.
Monopoly guy.
yeah.
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
Love it.
Favorite movie?
Would it be cliche for me to say Hoosiers? Probably.
Yeah.
But
Pick another one other than
Yeah,
Hoosiers.
right.
Shawshank Redemption.
Ah, see, that's mine. All right, I'm right there with you on that.
Shawshank fan.
Favorite dessert?
Cheesecake.
Okay.
With anything with peanut butter on it.
Okay. All right.
Huge peanut butter fan.
All right, I'll give you
Yes.
that. All right. And now you can be up the hot seat. Now that we just made up those last few.
Yeah.
So many thanks for our head women's coach, Lynn Milligan, and our head men's coach, Kevin Baggett, for joining us on the hot seat today to talk July recruiting. For more on Rider basketball, please visit our website at www.gobronx.com. I'm Karen Torsha. Thanks for watching. Go Bronx.
Sets me